even in 2021, I was able to put together a custom used PC, and I'm very excited to tell you about it. The heart of this PC is going to be this RX 560 here that I got from a build off of OfferUp that the guy actually said it had bad RAM. I actually have a video of that on Instagram. I picked it up pretty much just for the graphics card, and that's gonna be what I built the system around. The processor in there is actually an overclocked i7-2600K. Now, the motherboard, RAM, and processor I actually got from a different purchase off of Craigslist with just the bare bones kit of a gaming PC that worked perfectly fine, but it had an i5-3570K, so I decided to put a 2600K in there, and then since this is a Z-series motherboard and I had this 212 Evo lying around, I decided I'd mess with a little bit of overclocking. So I'll actually have some comparison benchmarks. I ran some benches with the i5, and then I ran some benches with the i7, so it'll be kind of interesting going up to hyper-threading but then going back a generation. So we'll see exactly how performance differs there. For storage, just 120 gig solid state, 1 terabyte hard drive. I got this 600 watt EVGA BQ semi-modular power supply off of EVGA B stock, which I was happy with. And then the case is just this old like CyberPower PC, well, thermal take case. Not great cable management, but I made do, and the front panel is actually just a USB 3.0 cable that just goes back into the Type A port. I also had to route both of these cables up around here. They're not getting in the way of anything, but yeah, this case doesn't have much room. I got a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi card in there. That is what they requested. The fan configuration in this case is actually just a single 120mm there, and then a 120mm here. I made sure to keep airflow here really nice and neat. This is actually a 3-pin, so it's at pretty much 100% all the time at around 1800 RPM, and it's a little bit loud, but since the top and back are so open here, and this cable is going to get in the way of an exhaust, I'm actually just leaving it like that, and the temperatures, from what I've tested so far, are doing fine. Otherwise, I think that's about all I had for the parts, so now we'll just get to benchmarking. Here's Doom Eternal running at about medium settings. On the left is going to be the i5, on the right is going to be the i7 for all the tests. Both processors do a pretty good job. You can tell from the stats, and I could feel it when I was playing. There was definitely a few more lag spikes and just frame time inconsistencies on the i5 versus the i7. Wasn't super noticeable everywhere, but you can see once I get into a lot of different enemies, the frames can freak out on the i5 a little bit more than the i7. Otherwise, both of them gave a perfectly playable experience, 1080p, medium settings, which I was really happy with. Here with Overwatch, I was able to use Afterburner so you can more clearly see the frame rate and frame time graphs. And here, it's very apparent that the i7 is giving much more consistent frame times and frame rates, at least towards the beginning here during this bigger fight. I was actually surprised by this. I thought that Overwatch was much more of a GPU-intensive game rather than a CPU-intensive one. So, seeing this big of a difference definitely confirmed my suspicions that 4 cores, no hyper-threading is not quite enough for a lot of these games. So, it's good that a lot more modern processors are giving you more cores, and an i7-2600 with that many cores would have been a fantastic investment back then, especially if it's performing this well right now. Here's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, a much more graphics-intensive game. You can see both graphics cards are hovering right around 100%. Neither of the CPUs are being bottlenecked here, at least just from a usage standpoint. Frame times and frame rates are both pretty consistent. I would have loved to add some more big open world first-person or third-person just single-player games to see if there's any kind of trend towards these being more graphics intensive than CPU intensive. Nothing too much more to say here. Pretty impressive performance out of both of these processors. Here's another game where there's a pretty obvious difference between both the processors. You can very clearly see frame rates and frame times are a lot more steady on the i7 versus the i5. CPU usage is much lighter on the i7 as well, for more room for streaming or really doing anything else in the background. But the i5 is working as hard as it possibly can, and it's bringing the graphics card down with it. This is another great example of how frames per second doesn't always matter, because you can see that I'm getting slightly higher average frame times on the left, but there's a lot less stuff going on than on the right. Wish I could have had a bit more consistent playthroughs, but it's kind of difficult with one of these kind of games. Now here's Warzone, where in my opinion we start getting to about the edge of what this computer can run. I'd still say it's playable. I might have been able to turn down a few more settings, or even the resolution scaling, stuff like that. I wanted to keep all of these at about medium. It was still playable, and the i7 experience was noticeably better. But this is a pretty tough game to run. And in terms of the graphics card, I'm not sure how much better it can really do, even if we had a better processor. Here's Rainbow Six Siege, where they're gonna get pretty close here. There's a few more frame rate and frame time spikes on the i5, but otherwise they're both pretty similar. And either of these combos are great for this game, and I've found this game is really optimized and plays well on just about anything. Well, I think that should be about it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe, and also there's a link tree down in the description with other content I make in between YouTube videos. I'll see you guys later. Bye.